Welcome to today's team selection video where this week I could be captaining Cole Palmer. It sounds even crazier when I say it out loud, but let's get stuck into today's team selection video. Welcome to today's team selection video. You'll probably notice that my voice is a little bit croaky because I was at the Stadium of Light celebrating the semi-final for the playoffs, and of course Sunderland got the job done. So fingers crossed I'll be able to pick Sunderland players in my fantasy team next season. But if you are new around here, feel free to drop a subscribe for future videos and deadline streams. But let's get stuck into the defensive lineup. We've got Henderson starting things off and go with the Wolves fixture at home. Of course, we expect maybe a bit of Crystal Palace rotation in this fixture, but I feel as though Dean Henderson's position is pretty much solidified. Keepers don't really get rotated too much unless you're in like a side like Man City, where Edison and Ortega kind of swap and change here and there depending on what Pep wants to do. Feels as though Henderson's definitely going to be playing in this fixture. The question marks start to come whether people are going to play or not when it comes to O'Brien and Kieran Trippier on the bench there, because we didn't have O'Brien within the squad whatsoever in the last fixture, which was a little bit disappointing. Of course, he was meant to be on my bench anyway last game week, so it wasn't too much of an issue, but I really wanted him for this game week in particular. Now, there's a doubt around O'Brien. You know, it's not that great, but fingers crossed we get some good news in the press conference that he is going to be starting, or at least has a chance and is fit for that Southampton at home fixture. We'll go across to Nico Williams. West Ham away from home isn't a bad fixture. I feel as though Forest have dropped off a little bit, and we have seen that in recent performances. Of course, against Leicester, that 2-2 draw, really not great. The reason I brought in Nico Williams last week was because of an amazing clean sheet chance, and of course that went out of the window. We'll see what happens in this West Ham away fixture. Hopefully they come away with something in the game, a clean sheet, maybe an attack and return from Nico Williams. Of course, I do own Jared Bowen in my team, so there's a bit of a clash there with fixtures, but hopefully one of them at least comes away with something great for me this game week. We've got Guardiola with Bournemouth at home. I feel as though Bournemouth still are attacking really well. We've seen them against Villa do pretty good, but just couldn't get the ball in the net. I feel as though City are strong defensively, so Guardiola should have a decent chance this game week at a clean sheet as well. There have been times where he has pruded up to that left wing back position again, which is really nice to see. I suppose it just depends on fixture, who's available, who needs to be rested in Pep's system. Of course, they have the cup final on the horizon. That's more of a priority than the league at the moment. I do believe that Champions League is pretty much guaranteed for Manchester City. They look really strong and have been really strong in recent weeks. In terms of the bench, we spoke about Trippier. We spoke a little bit about Newcastle in general. Pope, obviously I'm not going to play him against Arsenal away. Agbadou, Crystal Palace away. It's maybe something I could consider. Perhaps have him first on the bench as a defender, so if O'Brien doesn't feature, then Agbadou would come in and play. But I feel as though Palace will do pretty well against Wolves, to be honest. But that is a defensive line. Let's move up now to the midfielders. Pretty happy with the midfielders this game week. We'll start with Jared Bowen and move across, because Jared Bowen has a pretty decent home fixture against Nottingham Forest. The problem with the Forest fixture is Forest are very defensive and very good at being defensive. We have just seen them concede 2 goals against Leicester, so maybe that allows players like Jared Bowen in that West Ham shirt to come through in this fixture and kind of take advantage of an out-of-form Forest side. You know, it could go either way. I really don't know what this game's going to hold for us. If I had to guess, I would say Forest will come out on top against West Ham, but West Ham have had a nice sort of run at the end of the season. A lot of draws, to be honest with you, and a few losses thrown in there. But Jared Bowen's been a real great player for West Ham in these last few fixtures since I brought him in. We, of course, have the talking point of the video, Cole Palmer captaincy. Now, you can all call me crazy. I really don't mind. Of course, last week was a small red arrow back down into the 200k mark, so I need any way to climb back up towards that top 100k mark and sort of beat last season's rank that I got. So Cole Palmer is already a differential. Now we're captaining him he's a mega differential for me this game week. Manchester United at home. I think it's a great fixture for him in my side in particular. A lot of people will be looking at the likes of Watkins this game week, and perhaps Bukayo Saka if you went Saka over Palmer on your wild card. But for me, Palmer this week, I think that he's the best captain for my side. It's hard to really tell who's going to be a standout captaincy. Of course, you might say Mbeumo's definitely an option, but his goal threat hasn't been amazing in the last two fixtures. It's been up there, but he's more of a creative and assisting player, especially when I've watched him in the last two fixtures. I watched the 90 minutes and kind of analysed Mbeumo as much as I humanly can, and yeah, the goal threat's there, but it's not as high as I would maybe like from my captain. You could argue that Cole Palmer doesn't really have much goal threat, but against a Manchester United side at home, you would like to think that Chelsea would do something great against that really, really weak United side, of course, who are preparing for their final against Spurs. We, of course, have Salah to finish off the midfield. Now, Salah's one of those players where, at this point in the season, I'm probably just going to keep a hold of him. I don't really see there's much need to get rid of a Mohamed Salah. Of course, almost came away with a few assists, actually, in his last fixture, which I wasn't too surprised at. Of course, he is that sort of not selfish player. He likes to get his teammates goals, and we've seen that a few times, trying to play balls through to Szoboszlai, Diaz into the box rather than shoot himself. I do wish he shot for a few himself and got a few goals, but at his ownership he really wouldn't have made too much difference. I believe for every point that Mohamed Salah scored last game week, he only gained me 52 rank in total. That's 5 and 2, which was absolutely crazy. But yeah, across the midfield, things are looking pretty decent. Cole Palmer captaincy. Semenyo on the bench against a Manchester City side away from home. I don't really want to be playing Semenyo this game week, so of course he remains on the bench. But that is the midfielders for this game week. Let's finish off the video now and go up to my forward line. Now, the forward line presents a new problem in Omar Marmoush. Of course, we had that amazing news that Haaland started last game week and Marmoush was benched. A lot of people on stream did go for Haaland, but of course, somehow Southampton kept them out. I mean, there was a lot of chances wasted from Manchester City, in my opinion. A lot of balls into places where no one's really going to be there. It's kind of just hit and hope, and it was a really disappointing outcome for those who did go for Erling Haaland. I still don't think Erling Haaland was a bad move to make against a really weak Southampton side. Why not take that punt? Sometimes it just doesn't work out, and of course, with Kieran Trippier last week being out of the Newcastle squad, I got Marmoush in my last week's game week score anyway for his 1-pointer, so I can somewhat share the pain of the Man City blank. But yeah, I don't know whether he's going to start this game week against Bournemouth. Perhaps there's a transfer I could make there, perhaps a -4 move for Kieran Trippier out if we get some potential news that he's definitely out now for the rest of the season, and then Marmoush to maybe somebody like an Ollie Watkins for his good run of fixtures towards the end of the season of Spurs and Manchester United. So potentially a move there. I suppose the press conferences should reveal a lot of information that will help us with Marmoush's move, with who's going to start for players for teams like that who have got important games coming up like Palace, Manchester United, Spurs, Chelsea, who've just lost Nicholas Jackson. How can we expect them to line up? Of course, Nkunku's due to leave in the summer, it seems, so maybe we see someone completely new play up front for Chelsea, perhaps even a Tyreek George who played up front in their Europa Conference match. He's looked really bright spark, but in terms of FPL, I don't think I'll touch him. But Isak as well in my forward line against Arsenal. Potentially his new club. I'm only joking. I think he'll stay at Newcastle. But yeah, Isak's been a weird one over the past few weeks because he's been there. He's been in good situations. He's been attacking. But the goals haven't really came, and it's been a real shame for those who stuck by Isak in the last few weeks. Of course, massive ownership behind him, and if you did go against Isak in the last few weeks, hats off to you because it probably was the right move to go somewhere else. But yeah, against Arsenal, I don't expect too much, but it's these type of games when Newcastle do tend to show up and kind of put a good performance in. I do think Arsenal will come out on top, and I'm not saying that just as a Sunderland fan. I just think Arsenal would like to secure that second spot, and this game is probably the game that will decide that going into the end of the league now. We have Evan-Neilson against Manchester City away from home. Of course, the last fixture of the season is really where I want to be playing my Bournemouth players, but this week I could be forced again into playing my Bournemouth assets. There is weeks where I haven't wanted to play Evan-Neilson. I've played him and he's done very well. Hopefully we can get that this week, but him doing well would result in Gvardiol not doing so well, which I suppose from an ownership point of view would be quite good for my team due to Evan-Neilson being a pretty big differential, although a lot of people are starting to look at him as a real good asset going into the end of the season now, especially with his amazing fixture on the last game of the season in Leicester at home. So him scoring this week against a largely owned Gvardiol wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, to be really honest with you, but yeah, that is the overall squad for the game week. A little recap on potential transfers. It could be likes of Trippier out and Marmoush out from -4 into Watkins and a defender to end off the season strong. I do apologise if my voice is completely wrecked this entire video. I was screaming and shouting at the Sunderland match non-stop, so yeah, I do apologise about that. But that is my squad for game week 37 in FPL. I always like to say a massive thank you to end my videos to all you guys who support the FPL Mugs YouTube channel. Of course, if you have enjoyed today's video, drop a like, and if you aren't yet subscribed, do click that subscribe button as well for future FPL content and deadline streams. But that is absolutely everything for today's video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.